This morning I was stuck in front of a Fox News broadcast for a short period and then with the NPR news program. It was enough to convince me that Nazi propaganda during Hitler's Third Reich was very mild compared to the constant stream of dangerous lies that are pumped out constantly by the American media. The New York Times, Washington Post, and a couple of think tank types were represented on NPR. They delivered the most crude propaganda imaginable and questioned no U.S. government statement. Did you know that all the trouble in Syria is due to the Russians and Assad? The U.S. has no blame whatsoever. The U.S. is trying to fight ISIS, which the U.S. created, aids and abets, but the evil Russians and Assad are fighting the innocent democratic rebels who are trying to bring democracy to Syria as a replacement for a brutal dictator, elected by a large majority vote. The Russians are also bombing schools and hospitals, collateral damage when the US does it but war crimes when the Russians are accused of doing it. The accusers had no evidence for their accusations against Russia beyond the unverified claims of the US government. Despite non-existent Iraqi weapons of mass destruction, non-existent Iranian nukes, and non-existent use of chemical weapons by Assad against his own people, the talking heads continue to accept without question whatever the US government says. I was especially disappointed in Karen DeYoung. As a young reporter, she aggressively covered the neoconservatives' misadventures in Nicaragua. However, to become the Washington Post's senior foreign affairs reporter, she had to give up and join the Presstitutes. Did you know that China was militarizing the South China Sea by building up atolls to accommodate runways and by placing weapons on the site? It is not militarization when the exceptional country allocates 60% of its large fleet to the Pacific, declares the South China Sea, which is thousands of miles from America, to be an area of American national interest, and sends warships to patrol the sea. That's simply countering the Chinese threat. Did you know that the clamour by the British people for UK exit from the European Union has nothing to do with preserving UK national sovereignty and the legal protections of British civil liberty? It is all to do with rejecting refugees, a sign of racism. Fox News informed us that due to his great service to our nation, Justice Antonin Scalia was lying in state in the Supreme Court to be paid homage by both the government representatives and public victims of the police state of which he was an architect. Under Republican leadership, the Supreme Court has helped the executive branch elevate its authority above that of the U.S. Constitution, refusing to even hear challenges to indefinite detention. Among Scalia's accomplishments are stopping the Florida vote recount in order to install George W. Bush as president. Kentucky v. King, police should have greater leeway to break into homes without a warrant. Florence v. Burlington, allowing jail officials freedom of action is more important than protecting American citizens from debasing strip searches. Like the Supreme Court, the Presstitutes have aligned themselves with the rich and powerful. Fox News reported that Marco Rubio, a candidate for the Republican presidential nomination, declared that to make the poor rich requires making the rich poor and we shouldn't make the rich poor. Apparently, Fox News believes that aligning Rubio with the 1% is helpful to his political career. Fox showed Rubio's audience cheering and applauding his defense of the 1%. This is democratic America where the people have no representation.